Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing a big preparation day. We have prepped and made some dough yesterday, some no-knead 24-hour garlic and rosemary dough. So what we'll do, we'll go back to that footage from last night. So for the no-knead 24-hour rosemary garlic bread, I just added 3 cups of plain flour in my bowl, and then using a whisk, I'm just kind of mixing it together, and that's just going to essentially sift it in a way without bringing out the sifter. I'm then going to add about half a teaspoon of salt and about a teaspoon of black pepper and about a tablespoon or 2 of garlic powder. I'm also going to add in 1 whole garlic clove that I finely minced and about a tablespoon of dried rosemary leaves. And this rosemary is homegrown rosemary that I dried myself. With the yeast, I'm adding only half a teaspoon, and I always was under the impression you need sugar to make yeast work, but that is not the case. This is also a sugar-free loaf, and as you will see in not that long into the video, the yeast definitely worked. So just with all the dry ingredients, I'm just mixing that all together, just again with my whisk. And now I'm pouring in 1.5 cups of room temperature water. If you can't get it at room temperature, it will be better slightly on the warm side than on the cool side. And now I'm just using a spatula to mix that all together. You'll see shortly I am hopeless, and I did end up going in with my hands, so that's kind of the texture. It did come together with the spatula. If I kept working with the spatula, it would have worked, but I'm just a hands-on person, and although it's a no knead, I'm not necessarily kneading it. I'm just kind of bringing it together with my hands just for a minute or two. And that is it. We're just going to wrap that up and leave it on the bench overnight or for 24 hours. Alright, so it's now present day, and this is how the dough is looking. So that's rising beautifully. We're going to be baking this soon. It wouldn't be the full 24-hour mark, but that's okay. It should still be fine. And we've got the potatoes we're going to do, carrots, the pumpkin and the spinach. We're all going to either make it into meals. We're going to do a few different things with the pumpkin. We're just going to preserve the spinach, as well as preparing these chicken drumsticks for dinner tonight, and I'm going to be doing that as a slow cooker meal. So that's the first thing we're going to start, is preparing the chicken drumsticks and put the slow cooker on. So what I'm doing now is the chicken drumsticks. I want to start off this slow cooker meal. It is just going to be a throw together what we have on hand kind of meal. I want it like a creamy base, creamy sauce base. So just pop my chicken drumsticks in a bowl. I'm going to add salt and pepper. Just going to rotate them a little bit just like that and season some more salt and pepper. And now just taking some plain flour, I'm just going to just chuck a bit in the bowl just to get them coated. And what we're going to do is I got my pan over here on a medium to high heat, and I'm just heating that pan up so we can chuck these in to brown off. Okay, this pan's probably not to temperature yet, but that's okay. We'll just add this chicken in, and I'm just going to be adding it in batches because you don't want to overcrowd the pan. So this is probably plenty. Alright, before we go any further, I just got my chicken cooking, we're just browning off. I thought I'll show you guys and share the recipes. So with this slow cooker meal, I'm just going to have the text on the screen here like I normally do. So yeah, that's the ingredients for the slow cooker. Again, I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to do because I don't really know what I'm going to do. But I did have the recipes written down for the pumpkin oat cookies. So here's this one if you want to just screenshot that. Pause and screenshot, or pause and write that down. The pumpkin oat cookies, we have not made these before. This is a new recipe for us. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. I will definitely let you guys know if it's good or not by the end of this video. Here is the no-knead bread that we currently have rising that we prepared last night and that we're going to bake up shortly. So there's the recipe for that one. And our banana pancakes, if you've seen my other videos and you saw my most recent what I eat in a day, and if you see my most recent what I eat in a day video, you would have seen I was obsessed with these banana pancakes. So here's our recipe for this. So what we're going to do, we could make some banana pancakes, but my main thing I want to make is some pumpkin pancakes. So I'm just going to replace the My cat is zooming. I'm just going to be replacing the banana with some pumpkin puree, which that's probably going to be the next step we're going to get into today, is making some pumpkin puree. And then we'll see if we have some time, we might make some banana pancakes as well. And with the pancakes, we're just going to make probably triple the batch. And then we can have them for the freezer as well. So breakfast, the oats cookies is like a breakfast kind of cookie, and these pancakes. So it's good to have some breakfast stuff. With our potatoes and our carrots, I'm going to make a potato bake, but because it's not that many potatoes, I'm going to make a potato and carrot bake. So just how I would normally do a potato bake, just got to add in some homegrown fresh carrots in there as well. And again, the potato bake recipe I'll just put on the screen here. Alright, let's go start chopping up some pumpkin and get ready for some pumpkin puree. Just quickly though, with this chicken drumsticks, it doesn't have to be like perfectly brown or on all sides, just so we got a little bit of color. See, that's fine there color wise on that piece. So yeah, I'm just going to be rotating them every couple of minutes. Alright, so I think with the pumpkin puree, I'm going to be using my biggest pumpkin. I also weighed the pumpkin too, which I don't remember on top of my head. I think it was around 1.7 kilo. So I'm going to switch my chopping board out for my bigger one. And I think this whole half a pumpkin I'm going to make into pumpkin puree, because we need pumpkin puree for the oat cookies. We need the pumpkin puree for the pumpkin pancakes. And for dinner tonight, we want some pumpkin mash. So obviously pumpkin mash starts with some pumpkin puree. So I want to make enough pumpkin puree to cover all of those bases. Alright, so we're going to be pausing the pumpkin chopping. I got my drumsticks in the pot. Now we're going to fill in the slow cooker. So I've just boiled 2.5 cups of water. So I'm just going to pour this in. The reason why I'm putting in water is because I'm going to be using a powdered stock. So this is a powdered stock I currently have in hand. I just read the directions because different types of brands and stocks has different amounts of powder you need to add to the water to make how much stock. So for this one you need 1 teaspoon for 1 cup. So I'm going to add in kind of heaped. I will do 2.5 teaspoons because I've done 2.5 cups of water. And of course, if I was using liquid stock, then just a liquid stock. You wouldn't need any additional water or anything. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of garlic powder. I got my pre-chopped frozen onions in here, so I'm just going to take enough out to fill roughly 1 onion. I also have some pre-chopped jalapenos. I don't know how much jalapeno is actually in here. Maybe 1.5 or maybe 2, but I'm just going to add all of that in. Again, just doing it because I have it. This is just a throw together random meal, but everything that I do add in, I will, like I said, have on the screen before, and I'll probably have it on the screen again just so it's a bit easier. Let's do a teaspoon of white pepper, a teaspoon of ground coriander, a teaspoon of paprika. We currently got smoked paprika, so that's just what I'm using because that's what I have. A teaspoon of ground cumin, and I thought some mustard might be really nice in here as well, but unfortunately I don't have any, but that is fine. So I'm just going to give this just a rough mix just so the chickens can get flipped over and the seasoning can go into the liquid. Alright, so for the most part, most of the chicken is under the liquid, so that is great. Obviously there's some bits sticking up, that's okay as well. So I'm going to push this back, and I want to cook this on high for about 6 hours, but for the last hour we want to add some cream. So in about 5 hours we'll come back to that and add the cream, and then that's done. Alright, so I've decided something with my very first pumpkin. I'm going to share it. I'm going to give 1/4 to my mum because I've chopped up half for in this pot. I believe this is probably enough pumpkin for what we need it for. So again, as a recap for the pumpkin, what we need is, I don't even know, I don't remember. I need to look at my recipe. So yeah, recap of what we actually need the pumpkin for. We only need 1 cup of puree pumpkin for our oats. I'm only going to do a single batch just because I've never made it before. And then with the pumpkin pancakes, although I just said I'm only going to do a single batch because I never made it before, I am probably going to triple that recipe just because, I don't know, we've made it with the bananas. A lot of people online do substitute the banana with the pumpkin. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But even with the single recipe, it's probably only going to need maybe 2 tablespoons of puree, so it's not that much pumpkin. And then we also want pumpkin mash for dinner tonight. And I was also working out with the drumsticks. We can get maybe 2 or 3 individual freezer meals with tonight's dinner as well, so I want pumpkin mash for that as well. So we essentially want to serve, I think, 5 servings. So yeah, we'll have 3 freezer meals, or maybe 2 freezer meals, or maybe some leftovers tomorrow. But regardless, we want enough pumpkin mash for 5 servings. So yeah, I do think what we got in our pot is probably enough. But just in case if what we do have in the pot isn't enough, I'm going to process or dice up this quarter to chuck it in the pot as well. And then if I end up making too much, then it's fine. We can just freeze it, bag it, weigh it, freeze it. And if the pumpkin pancakes turn out good, then we can use that frozen pumpkin puree for more pumpkin pancakes, or we could use it for the oats if we have a cup extra. But for this quarter, I'm going to pop that back into the fridge, and I'm going to give this to my mum because I know she's very excited to try our very first homegrown pumpkin. Alright, so we got the big pot of pumpkin on high heat just so it comes up to a boil, and then I'll turn down the heat for a little bit. I'm kind of glad I only done 3/4 of the pumpkin because with adding in the water, I don't think a full pumpkin would have fit in my pot. Alright, so I think the next project I'm going to be working on is this bread. It hasn't been a full 24 hours, but it has risen quite good. So for that, we need to preheat the oven. And again as well, I don't know if I mentioned this at the start, but this is the first time I'm doing all of these recipes. This, like I said, was just a throw together what we had. The noni bread, this is my first time doing it. The pumpkin pancakes, it's my first time doing that as pumpkin. The pumpkin oat cookies, my first time doing those. And the potato bake, well, that's just potato bake. That's not the first time, so that's all fine. So yeah, I am referring to the recipes I've written down. So the oven we want at 230 degrees Celsius, and we want to bake the bread for 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm going to pop that oven on now, and while the oven is preheating, I'm just going to do a general tidy up. I didn't unload. I do have a full load of dishwasher dishes. They are all clean from yesterday, same as the dishes on the top. I just hand washed a few dishes that we used after I popped on the dishwasher from yesterday. Normally that's the first thing I would like to do before I do these big cooking days, is make sure everything's all clean. All the benches and everything was all clean. I just didn't put away the dishes because I knew there would have been a period of time in this cooking day where I would have just doing nothing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll pop the oven on at 230 degrees Celsius, put away the dishes while it preheats, and then we'll go on with the bread. Alright, so I got the kitchen all tidied up. I don't have a cast iron. A lot of these bread recipes online call to cook it in a cast iron. I do feel like that's kind of Americanized. I don't think cast irons are that big in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like that's, yeah, a lot of American style recipes. So my next best thing, or the best thing that I have, is a glass pie dish. So I'm just using, yeah, just a standard glass pie dish. I'm just lined it with baking paper. I don't need to grease it or anything. And I'm just trimming off the excess on the top so the top doesn't burn, since the oven is on quite a high heat and it's going to go for about 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm just going to run my fingers around to try and score it in place and push against the sides. It should be fine. So that's what our dough currently is looking like. There's lots of air bubbles there, which is really, really cool. Oh, it's a sticky dough.
Oh, you have that dough scoop.
Oh, I got a dough scoop. Good thing you came in. Right, I'm gonna use my dough scoop. I forgot I had this. I'm gonna grab it. Try not to touch it too much. I'm just scraping the sides, aiming for in the center. And it is definitely a sticky dough. Okay, I don't move that around. And I want it more as a ball rather than a rectangle. You know what? This is how it landed. This is how it's going to go. Because you do not want to touch it too much or be too fussy. So it should be okay. It should even out hopefully when it bakes. So I'm just going to do some school marks. See how that ends up. But the oven's not preheated yet. So that's okay. I am going to get a clean dish towel, dishcloth, just to pop over it so it doesn't dry out while we're waiting for the oven to preheat. So the oven is now preheated. I really don't know about the scoring marks, but we'll see how we go. And we want to put the timer on for 30 minutes and then we'll check it. And if it needs an extra 10 minutes or so, we'll decide that when it comes to time. Alrighty, so because of this variety of this pumpkin, I didn't know how long to cook it for. This is the first time ever trying this variety. It is the, to be honest, I cannot remember. I'll put it on the screen. I feel like it's something grey. It's called something grey. But I didn't know how long this pumpkin's going to cook. Different pumpkins cook for different amount of time. So because I didn't know how long to cook it for, I just popped it in as soon as it reached boiling temperature or started to boil. I popped the timer on for 20 minutes. I then checked it. The timer had 5 minutes to go, so it was only boiling for 15 minutes, and I think I overcooked it. So I just drained it. I'm going to let it dry because I don't want it waterlogged. I don't want my puree to be watery. So I'm just going to let it dry in the sink, just how it is. So yeah, as you can see, it is quite hot and steamy. I just put it in the colander to let it dry, and I'm just going to leave it all in the sink until it doesn't have to be completely dry, but at least cool down a little bit and it just like dries and firms up a bit. Alright, our timer's just gone off, so the bread's been in for 30 minutes. Wow. I reckon that's done. I'm going to call it. So this is what the bread looks like. The score marks actually did work, so I am glad that he did say it. It does give it some character. You can see at the bottom it's got a nice colour on. I don't know what it's supposed to sound like, but it sounds like that. So yeah, we're just going to leave this in here to cool for about, just so I can touch it, and then we'll put it on a cooling rack. So now what we want to do is make the pumpkin puree. This is the pot that the pumpkin was cooked in. I haven't washed it or anything. It's perfectly fine. There's no water left in there. And our pumpkin. Because this on the bottom side was a little bit more wetter down here, I'm just going to now leave this in the pot just for a little bit, just a few minutes, just so this surface can dry up a little bit as well. So I just had a thought, rather than me just standing here sipping on my coffee, might as well get the ingredients for our cookies in the bowl. So obviously we need the pumpkin puree. That's going to be the last thing to add anyhow, because I generally like to mix all the dry ingredients first. This is a dump and mix recipe, so what that means is just you add and mix all the ingredients together. It's not adding in things individually and beating and mixing and scraping and all that stuff. It's just dump it all in, mix it all up. But although it's like this, I do prefer to mix all my dry ingredients still together. So that's what we'll do first, is add in the dry ingredients. So with the oats, we want 2.5 cups. This is just a half cup measure, so I want 5 of these. And because I don't have a jar or a container to store some oats, I'm just going to dump them in a freezer bag. Nice and protected for in the pantry. So that's what I'll do with the leftovers. We want to add a teaspoon of cinnamon, which is probably the rest of the cinnamon. To be honest, probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon. I would have had a little bit more, but that's all I have. Which means I have to run to the store, find time to run through the store, because I need cinnamon for the pancakes as well. But that's okay. 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. I might buy some nutmeg while we're at it as well, just because we use this again for the banana pancakes. So yeah, while I'm there, I might as well just pick up both. Optional add-in seeds, nuts, chocolate chips, etc. I'm not going to do any add-ins. Yeah, I'm not going to do any add-ins just because I'm just going to see how this recipe goes first, just as a base. So essentially the dry ingredients is just oats and the spices. And obviously if you had add-ins, then it's add-ins. And the sugar is going to be syrup. You can use maple syrup or liquid stevia. Just to give it some more flavor rather than using liquid stevia is you definitely do want a liquid sweetener or sugar to help moisten the cookies rather than using actual real sugar or brown sugar or powdered sweetener. So I found this sugar-free maple syrup, so that's what I'm going to do. If you're not worried about sugar-free or not, just use regular maple syrup or any, like I said, liquid sugar or sweetener of your type, or honey as well is a good one. But yeah, I found this, so I'm keen to give this a try. We haven't tried it yet. But I'm going to wait to add that into at the same time when I add the pumpkins. So let's just pop this off to the side, and then we're going to turn the pumpkin into some pumpkin puree. So if I have pumpkin puree, it's so simple, you just have to mash it. And that is it. So you do want to dry off your pumpkin like how I have had it sitting and drying off, just so it doesn't go watery and gluggy. If I knew this pumpkin was going to cook so quick, so it was cooking for 15 minutes, probably at the 10-minute mark I would have checked it. I felt like maybe 12-13 minutes is all it needed. But yeah, you definitely don't want it. You want to cook your pumpkin enough so it does mash. But you don't want to overcook it, otherwise it will just go watery and gluggy. So yeah, I definitely do love the fact that I can say homegrown pure pumpkin puree. Yeah, I love it. I don't know, it just makes me so happy. It makes me excited. Definitely it doesn't have to be homegrown. I never made it homegrown until today. Today's my first time. So you can definitely just buy an ordinary pumpkin. But I definitely do recommend doing it from a fresh pumpkin than canned pumpkin. I just feel like the flavour will be better and you know it's 100% pure. Alright, so our bread is nice and touchable. It's cooked through now. I know, I'm second guessing myself. I mean, that is a beautiful colour on the bottom. Holy, that is hot on the bottom as well. I am second guessing myself if it's cooked. Trial and error, I suppose. We'll see how it goes. But at least now it's cooling. It is such a beautiful loaf. I love it. Alrighty, so we got our puree pretty much all pureed up. I've just popped the oven back on for 175 degrees Celsius for these cookies. So we want 1 cup. Again, I'm just going to use the same half cup measurer. So how I'm going to do it is just kind of top it and squish it in. So that's pretty much, yeah, perfect. And we want about 3 tablespoons of syrup. Thinking maybe a metal spoon might be easier to mix and combine everything. Alright, so I've just got a baking tray here. It did take a while to incorporate it and it felt very dry, but it did feel, you just keep going with it. I was like, oh, what do I add? Do I add some oil or more syrup? I don't know, but it feels good now. So this essentially makes 12 and it's not a cookie that's going to spread, so you actually do want to make the cookie shape. So I really don't know. I'm just going to try and get it divided by the 12. So it's essentially maybe about a heaped tablespoon worth of mixture, I think. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so I reshaped the first 2 that I made. So roughly about a heaped tablespoon and a half worth of mixture, and I done them maybe about 1 centimeter in thickness still. So it did perfectly make 12. Now these are going to go in the oven for 10 to 12 minutes for at 175 degrees Celsius. Alright, so the cookie timer just went off and I just checked it, and we're going to take them out. They smell so good. They smell really, really good. Alright, so as you can see, these are the cookies. They just kind of hold its shape. They haven't really gone brown. They just look the same. They just feel quite, well, yeah. As you can see though, I'll just pick this one up. You can see, holy crap, that is actually really hot. You can see some stuff from the oats. It kind of looks like flour, but obviously there's no flour in it. That's just the oats. So I think what I'm going to do next time is make the mixture and probably let it sit for maybe 10-15 minutes and then shape them into the cookies, just so it has that time for the pumpkin and the liquid sugar to kind of soften the oats a little bit. This bread is cooling down extremely nicely. I am kind of tempted to try it warm, but I'm also nervous it's not cooked in the middle. I don't know, it said 30 to 40 minutes and I took it out at the 30-minute mark. But I'm just gonna transfer these cookies so they can cool completely. I'm so excited to taste test everything. That's the best thing about trying new recipes, is just trying new foods. And I am a fussy eater. If you guys have seen my other videos, you know I'm a fussy eater. But I just make food with ingredients that I like. Or just things, sometimes I do feel kind of adventurous with my food. Not often, but sometimes. Yeah. But now, I don't know what we're gonna do. Alright, so what I'm thinking now is, hello baby. Hello. Okay. So what I'm thinking now is to, you're okay. So what I'm thinking now is to make some, he's so warm, he was just sitting up in the windowsill by the sun, is the potatoes and the carrots. Ugh. And apparently having a little cuddle. So this one is Zeke. I did get a comment the other day asking if the cats have made an appearance or introduced in the videos. So this one's Zeke. He is my little cuddle bug of a cat, as you can see. He loves attention. Absolutely loves attention. The other one, Luna, she likes her personal space. So you probably won't see her much. But man, this guy is heavy. Hey baby. Anyway, so as I was saying, I think now I'm not going to do the pumpkin pancakes anymore today because I think I've only got enough pumpkin puree for mash. I don't think there's going to be anything left over. And although I said there's a couple of tablespoons, I'm just going to talk like this because my hands are heavy. Although I said there's only a couple of tablespoons, it is, if I'm going to do it, I want to do more than just a single batch. Otherwise, I just don't really feel like it's worth it. I can take bananas out and do banana pancakes. I might do that. So, I only froze this the other day, bananas, so I just ripped them into 3 pieces. There was 3 bananas in here, so I'm just gonna use all of it. But with this bag, I will put it back in the freezer, so when we get more bananas that's kind of due to be frozen, that we didn't get to for fresh eating, it can just go back into this bag, back up there in the freezer. Alright, so we still do have the fresh produce here. The spinach we're going to do a little bit later. Let's work on these carrots and potatoes. So first things first is to wash them. I'm not going to peel the potatoes. These bigger ones, this is just like the peel coming off anyway. But these bigger ones I will cut in half. Try and make them this size, or this size I reckon. So we'll just get along with preparing that, and same with these carrots. I tasted the cookie, to be completely honest. They are dry, very dry. So I definitely think if I were to do them next time, again, to let them sit even half an hour before making them into cookies. But for now, we're going to try this bread. But yeah, the cookies, they're dry. They are a bit bland. But I dipped it in with some of that sugar-free maple syrup, and that helped it a lot. I don't think it's cooked properly. It feels a bit sticky. You don't want a non-crust piece, or you want the crust? It's not cooked properly. Recipe said 30 to 40 minutes, and at 30 minutes it was like this dark, so I was like, yeah. But I just feel like that's not cooked.
Let me try a non-crust bit. Oh, cool. All I know about bread.
So that's the inside of the bread. I don't know, I'm nervous. I just need a towel, a clean towel down here. Right, so I'm just going to keep it wrapped in this clean towel because it's going to go with our dinner, hopefully. I don't know, I feel like it's not cooked properly. I should have left it in a bit longer, but that's okay. Alright, so now what's happening is I have washed all of the potatoes and a handful of these carrots. So our biggest carrot was this one, which, like, that's a pretty big carrot. I mean, well, it is nothing major, but compared to the rest of mine, they're pretty big. So yeah, I just got a handful of carrot and all the potatoes. I've washed them all. We're going to cut them now. That's what we're going to do. I was going to wash this spinach. The spinach hasn't been washed yet. Over on this side, I've got a pot of water. Well, it's not like full, but just a little bit of water in there because we want to blanch the carrots and the potatoes. And I just got some of our frozen onions in here, heating up to kind of like just get all nice and cooked a bit. And we're going to add that for the potato / carrot bake as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do with the carrots is just chop off the tops. So for our slow cooker meal, our dinner tonight, I have now turned that down to a low because it is bubbling. I think this slow cooker, this one's actually my mum's. We kind of swapped because we both made something, brought it somewhere, and we just took the wrong ones home. I don't exactly remember what it was for, but cooking this one on high, it's like boiling as well, kind of like what my other one did. So I definitely think I'm going to need to get a new one. Alright, so we got some bigger sized potatoes. This is like a normal sized baby potato. Some smaller ones and some smaller ones again. So what we're going to do is try and make the carrots and these bigger potatoes the same size as these little ones. These ones we're just going to be cooking whole because they're so small. And I'm not going to peel anything either. We'll just leave it all peeled, with the peels on. Alright, now let's go. So getting in that horrible time with the lighting. So as you can see, this one is a thinner piece of carrot compared to the thicker piece. So I'm just doing it roughly so it all kind of cooks at the same time. And then with the bigger potatoes, woo, first time cutting into a potato, homegrown potato. Actually, I've just realised this, oh no, not the onion and the garlic. I was going to say this bake, the potato and carrot bake, is 100% pure homegrown produce, but it's not because I'm going to add onions, which I got frying now, and I'm going to be adding the garlic. So yeah, maybe next year. Next year I definitely, because when I first got into gardening, but yeah, maybe next year it can be 100% from homegrown produce, because when I first got into gardening this year, it was kind of in an awkward time in winter, so it was too late to plant garlic and onions. I did try, they just didn't work because it was the wrong timing to plant them, so I did miss a big chunk. And then obviously now I've got the full spring and summer, which they're just not spring summer vegetables to plant. But next year, hopefully I can make something like this again, but do it 100% homegrown produce. Alright, so now this water is boiling. We're just going to dump it all in. It's gonna splash. That's alright. Woo! Nope, that's steam. How am I gonna do this? Woo! There we go. Okay, they are all in the pot. I don't know why I made that so hard. I'm going to pop the timer on just for 3 minutes and then we're going to drain them. Alright, so while we are waiting for the potatoes and the carrots, I've just popped in the onions we just cooked. I'm going to add in 300 mils of cream. So this whole container of cream. I'm going to season with about a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper and about a tablespoon of garlic powder. And because this is going to be for the freezer, I don't know what is going to end up getting served with this. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to make something, whether it's just going to be steak and maybe fry up some green beans and pull one of these out of the freezer and chuck it in the oven, or if it's going to be like a whole complete roast dinner meal and then I don't need to make a potato bake, or if it's just going to be like sausages and a barbie and I don't know, maybe some chicken wings, like just some easy barbecued meat outside while this just gets chucked in the oven. Like, we don't know what's going to get paired with it, so I'm just going to keep it basic like this. I'm not going to have it herby because if I'm saying doing a roast chicken and I make the roast chicken herby, I don't want 2 herby side dishes. Well, 2 herby dishes. So yeah, because I don't know what we'll end up having this with, I'm just going to keep it nice and basic. Alright, so I've just drained the potatoes and the carrots. This is just an empty pot, the same pot, but it's empty now. So I'm going to return these back in. When I added these veggies, obviously adding something to boiling water, that's going to make the temperature go down. So I restarted my timer. I waited till I noticed these started to simmer, and then I popped the timer back on for 3 minutes. So that's all they've had, and that is plenty. So what I'm going to do is mix my sauce. Generally with potato bake, if I slice it, I'll just spoon the sauce over the whole dish. Like I'll layer out the slices. But because this isn't a sliced one, I'm just going to mix it all in the pot, and then we'll put it in their individual trays. I am thinking I might have some Parmesan cheese in the fridge. I'm thinking about breading some of that and mixing that in too. I think that will be quite yummy. Alright, so there's half a cup of Parmesan cheese. And we're just going to give this a nice mix through. And as you can see as well, it is quite runny and liquidy. When it goes into the oven and it bakes and then it cools, it will just naturally thicken up with the starch from the potatoes anyway. And then when we freeze it and then defrost it, it's just going to keep going to like a runny and a more of a thicker sauce. So I'm not too worried about the sauce. And if it does end up being on the runny side, then that's fine. Alright, so now we're going to separate these into individual containers. So I've just got 3 containers here. I'm just going to start off with the 3 and see how that goes. If it makes 4, then that will be cool too. Actually, well, I'm going to do it as one at a time, but I can just get some more out if I need. So I'm not going to completely stack up these containers because again, it's just as a side dish, and it'll be either Nick and I or just myself eating them when that time comes. So yeah, that's plenty. With it not being completely stacked up, it's completely fine and plenty for us. So these containers I got from Woolies. They are smaller than the ones that I get from Kmart. I normally get them from, but that's okay because this one wouldn't have been a full container anyway, I don't think. And now with the leftover cream in the middle of the pot, I'm just going to scoop back over to the first one because that would have had the least amount. Alright, one thing I do want to do, I feel like it's not enough sauce in these. So what I am going to do is just grab some more cream and just put in a couple of tablespoons extra cream. And obviously this isn't flavored, but it's all going to get cooked together and it'll be fine. And now I'm just going to wrap each one in some foil, and then they can go into the oven for 30 minutes. And also with our dinner, which smells absolutely beautiful by the way. Oh, yum. I'm going to add in some cream. So I'm probably going to add in maybe about 200 mils. So yeah, this is what it's looking like. I've just added the cream, so now I'll give it a nice mix. It smells really good. It's definitely thin and runny, but that's okay. I could add corn flour, but I'm too lazy. Plus we got some bread to soak up the juice, so it's fine. And I've just switched on my dishwasher, so sorry for that background noise. I'm just taking a minute or a couple minutes out. I'm gonna have some bread. I've just put some butter on it. This bread, honestly, is incredible. Definitely the best bread I've made ever. And I didn't even have to knead it. Like, poof. Is this a keeper recipe? I did say it doesn't look and it doesn't feel like it's cooked through, but it tastes cooked. So I don't know, maybe next time I make it, I might do it more the 35 to 40 minute mark and see how that goes. But it smells and tastes absolutely wonderful. Definitely the best bread ever. Alrighty, so these have been out of the oven for a little bit. They smell really, really good. They smell good. They look good, and as you can see, the cheese would have helped as well. But as you can see, the sauce is not as runny. Now, I would normally add some grated cheese to this on top, pop the lid on, and then freeze it. But I put the grater in the dishwasher. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I've done with the cabbage rolls, which it's hot, which has been working out fine, and I'm just going to put the lids on and write on it saying I need to add cheese. Alright, banana pancake time. The lighting is horrible, but I got the 3 frozen bananas in my bowl. I'm just going to mush that up with my fork first, and I also got my pan on a medium heat, heating up. Alright, to the bowl we want to add 3 bananas. Again, if you're just doing it as a single recipe, it's 1 banana and 1 egg, but I am tripling it. Just noticed I got some shell. Alright, so to this I'm going to add about a teaspoon of cinnamon and about half a teaspoon of nutmeg. You can just dump all of the ingredients in the bowl and then just give it one mix, but I'm just going to add it and mix. And now with the almond meal, so you generally would want 1/4 to 1/3 of the cup, because obviously bananas and eggs can be different shapes and sizes. So I'm just going to go in for about 3/4 of a cup. And then if it's too wet and sticky, I'll add some more. But we want to definitely add less, mix it in, see how it goes, and add more if we feel like we need to add more. Which, yeah, I am going to add in maybe even about another 1/4 of a cup. Right, so I think that is plenty. Again, it's hard to tell with the lighting, but the consistency is just thick. It's not like thick, but yeah, it's just kind of like a thick cake mix kind of batter. Right, so the lighting on this side is nicer and better, so you can see that a bit more clear. So my pan is definitely nice and heated now. I'm just going to take a tablespoon at a time, because it is quite thick. You kind of want to thin the pancakes out yourself. And I like to make small pancakes. So about 2 tablespoons of mixture. So we're just going to give it a minute or 2, and then we'll flip them and give that a minute or 2, or I'll say 2 to 3 minutes realistically. I'll show you guys when we flip them what they will look like. So yeah, it's been a couple of minutes. When I do flip them, I do like to squish them a little bit just so they don't get so thick and doughy in the middle. Whoops. Right, so while we are making the pancakes, I am going to get all this spinach washed. So I've just popped on a pot of water onto the stove just to get that to come up to a boil. So hopefully once these are all nice and washed, that water will be ready to blanch this spinach, because we are processing this for the freezer, which I do have a video about, but I want to get all of this fresh garden produce all done and just processed in some way today. Alright, we're so close in finishing today's project. So water is simmering. Gonna dump in our freshly washed homegrown spinach. Press that all in, and just going to leave it in for 1 minute. And this is the last batch of the pancakes as well, currently in the pan, so that's really exciting. Oh, it's a bit dark on this side, that's okay. And that's my timer already to get the spinach out. It really does not take long at all, so I'll turn it off the heat. I just got some ice water. Just give it a quick mix in the hot water. I don't have ice water, I got cold water. I'll add in some ice cubes afterwards. So it's kind of all melted now, but I did add some ice cubes to this water, but we're going to pause on this and make that pumpkin puree into pumpkin mash. Alright, so with this puree, as you can see, there's like no liquid in here at all, which is wonderful. Just what we want. And now I'm going to season it with about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, same amount of black pepper, and same amount of garlic powder, and just give that just a quick mix just to combine the seasoning in with the pumpkin for a bit. So I'm just going to be adding in maybe about 1/4 cup of milk. You just want to mix that in, and you can use cream if you want. I might even add some cream just to give it that nice richness and creaminess to it. Normally I would just use just milk, but because I do have this extra cream now in my fridge, I'm going to do about 1/4 cup of this cream as well. Do whatever you prefer or what you have, if it's just milk or just cream, but you do want to add some liquid just so it's not so thick as a consistency, and it just adds the nice creaminess to it too. Alright, so now this is getting really exciting. We're going to serve up some dinner. Alright, so I was going to serve up dinner in bowls, and then use these containers for freezer meals, the leftovers for freezer meals, except because we don't have a microwave, we'll be heating this up. But because we don't have a microwave, we'll be heating this up in the oven. It's probably a bit much. So it's just easier. Oh, I guess I could have used the other dishes. I don't know. We're just doing it like this for now though. Realistically as well, I was going to, or originally I should say, I was going to cook up some green beans to go in here, but I just can't be bothered. I am definitely kind of getting over it. So we're just going to have the chicken and the juices and just the pumpkin instead, but that's fine. Alright, so the slow cooker has been off for a little bit. I'm going to have 2 drumsticks in each one. Oh, that is hot. The worst thing about slow cooked drumsticks is they do not look appetizing, but I know they're going to be absolutely delicious. Alrighty, so dinner is served. It's definitely not the prettiest, and some green beans or some kind of green vegetable would be one, just nice. Like, this is still going to be absolutely delicious, I'm sure, but it would just look nice. It would be more just well presented, I feel like. But these are definitely full of the bone, tender, these chicken drumsticks, and I just sprinkled them with some dried parsley just to try and make it look a little bit more nicer, because as you can see, some of this chicken is definitely full of the bone completely, and they just look ugly. That's the worst thing about chicken drumsticks. I do have one left over and enough pumpkin mash to make a whole tray of just pumpkin mash, so that's another perfect side. So realistically, I could have made pumpkin pancakes, but that's okay. Alright, so we have done a lot today. Slow cooker meal is all done and all packaged. I just kind of set things up like this just for a quick thumbnail because I'm fighting with the light now. We got our banana pancakes all packaged. They just have to go in the freezer. The breakfast pumpkin oat breakfast cookies in the freezer. A whole pumpkin mash for the side dish. So if we want to just do again like a piece of steak and veg or a piece of chicken and veg, we can just do a piece of chicken breast each, which we got plain chicken breast in the freezer, and pop that in the oven, and that's plenty for the 2 of us for a side dish, as well as our slow cooker meals. So 2 of these is going to be for tonight, 1 each, and we're going to have 3 extra in the freezer, as well as our homegrown pumpkin and potato bake. Potato and carrot bake. So we got 4 side dishes for another meal there, and our bread. And then this bread I did make 1 to just kind of trial it, and 2 for dinner tonight. So we will slice some more of that to go with our dinner tonight, but we're not going to eat just yet. Okay, well, the last thing I wanted to do was finish this spinach, but I can't do it because I think I broke the vacuum sealer. So this is Nick's thing. Like, he loves it, and he normally does it for me, but I thought I'll give it a go, and it's not turning on. So I don't know what I've done, but the machine's not turning on. I can't figure it out. But pretty much with my process is, with this spinach, I'll grab it, I'll squeeze it as much as I can, and then I pop it into this bag. I just make balls, so you can see there's different times I've made the balls. And then these balls, this now weighs, I think it was 260 something. So when I get around the $250 gram mark of frozen balls, I will then tell Nick and he'll come pull this out and vacuum seal it for me, and it goes in the outside fridge. Because frozen spinach isn't something we generally eat often. That's why I do want it vacuum sealed, not just in a regular freezer bag. But just while I'm waiting to get that 250 gram mark, I do just keep it in one of these bags. So now, I don't know, I'm gonna wait for him to check the vacuum sealer, see if he can turn it on, or see if I've done something wrong. I don't know, but that was all. So for now, this is just going to go into the fridge. I suppose it's going back into the freezer. And that is everything for today's video. Those carrots as well, the leftover carrots, they did end up going back into the fridge. So yeah, I'm just going to deal with those tomorrow. All they need is washed. Kitchen is relatively clean. I just got to wait for those meals to just cool down a little bit before they go into the freezer. The pumpkin cookies and the banana pancakes are currently in the freezer. The spinach is back in its freezer and the fridge. So yeah, that is everything done today. So thank you so much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe down below so don't miss out my future videos. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!